Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Mara Talks in our Revolutionary Mothering series. I hope you've enjoyed watching all the interviews this month and have been as inspired as I have been by all these people who have decided to be the change that they want to see in the world. I'm Carrie Cavers, founder of Moms Against Racism Canada. And in my grade 10 math class, my teacher had a sign above the chalkboard that read, "There's three types of people in this world: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened." And I've tried to be an active participant in my life, to really live my life and make things happen. And part of that is being a lifelong learner. And in this learning, I've come to see myself and my family as uninvited guests on the unceded territories of the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations. And there's so much more for me to learn about this land, these nations, and how I can respectfully live, work, and raise my children here. And I'm committed to doing that learning and putting it into practice to support Indigenous sovereignty, as I'm extremely grateful for the love and care these lands have been stewarded with by the Indigenous peoples time immemorial. And sometimes the best learning comes from each other and our lived experiences, where there are shared stories, camaraderie, and mentorship. And my guest today, in her revolutionary mothering, has created a platform to make this type of learning and support available to women pursuing careers in tech. Humaira Ahmed is originally from Karachi, Pakistan, and moved to Canada at 20 years old. She studied computer science at Toronto's York University, but ended up dropping out after feeling the isolation of being one of the very few women in all of her classes. So she took up communication studies instead. With over a decade of experience in tech, she decided to create Locelle after becoming a mom to connect ambitious women. When COVID-19 hit, the regressive effects of women were further highlighted, which pushed Humaira to act fast. So Locelle quickly evolved into a mentorship matching platform with leading women in tech, facilitating career growth for workplace teams and individual women. The fully managed one-to-one tailored mentorship platform has attracted tech businesses like Starfish Medical, RingPartner, VanHack, Terramera, and more, who invest in gender diversity and inclusivity of their workforce for a more equitable future. Hi, Humaira. Thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Carrie. And I would like to acknowledge that I'm grateful to be here on unceded First Nations land. I'm also learning a lot because I moved from Pakistan, had no idea. And actually, I will say this, that I've had more of an opportunity to learn more about the First Nations Indigenous land after moving to Victoria. So, and also my kids go to school with First Nations kids as well. So I think it's such a great opportunity to teach them, embrace change, as well as breaking stereotypes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. So we are asking each of our revolutionary mothers the same three questions, and I am looking forward to your answers. So our first question is, what does revolutionary mothering mean to you?
Yeah, it's such an interesting term. Like, I read it and I was like, wow, revolutionary. I never thought of myself as being a revolutionary mother to begin with. But then as I learned more about what the term meant, I think what that means to me is even reflecting on who I am, what I know, where I want the world to be, and how we can get there. And I also acknowledge that it's not a one person thing. Yes, like you talked about being the change maker. I am a change maker. I'm happy to be that change maker. But at the end of the day, it takes the whole village, it takes the whole community for systemic change to actually happen. With that said, I think the first step is to acknowledge the biases I personally have. How I have grown and evolved as a person, and I have, which also allows me to focus on what values can I instill in our community, in our children, for an equitable workplaces for women, but as well as other people that are underrepresented, and in quotes, visible minorities. So I really, really want to, yeah, I think there's a lot of status quo that needs to be challenged. There's a lot of stereotypes that need to be broken. And I do it every single day, whether that's within our home, whether that's through the work that I do, and in getting the other community members involved too. So as an example with Locelle, yes, we work with women, but I don't believe that just working with women is gonna make any change. So we go through the employer funded opportunity where companies invest. And that's a crucial part, because not only are they investing in the women, recognizing this is needed, but also they get to act on, if they find any challenges that most women have within their companies to make their workplaces more equitable. So I think it just always needs to be, the ecosystem needs to come together to strengthen. And I'm all about that, whether that's through events, whether that's through my even kids. Like we read books to them about, just challenges women have faced in general, but also books where there's different types of, people represented, and make sure that they go out and talk about that with their friends too. And so I'll just share a little kind of story. The other day, I was driving in Gia, my 4-year-old was sitting in the back seat, and she's a chatterbox. She was like, mommy, she was reading this book that has, differently abled kids on different races, different genders. And she's reading this book, and she was so happy. She said, mommy, look, there's a kid on a wheelchair. And I was like, yeah, isn't that amazing? What would you do if you met somebody in a wheelchair? And, without even any thought, she was like, I would play with them. And it was so amazing for me to hear that my husband and I both, we work on this together as a family. This is a constant conversation in our family, because we want our kids to be open to, again, break the stereotypes, challenge status quo, and be better human beings. So I think just not just bettering yourself, but that's the first step though, because if you're not better, you can't preach. That. So bettering yourself, acknowledge you have your own biases. How do you break those biases, whether that's books, podcasts, groups, as well as just talking out loud. I'm happy to take one for the team. I think we need to talk about these things. So thank you for having me and asking this question.
Thank you. And you wrapped up question number 1, what does revolutionary mothering mean to you, as well as started getting into question number 2, which is, in what ways do you practice revolutionary mothering? And you shared how you're doing that in your family, but I would love to hear also what that looks like within your organization, and what a woman who is using your platform, what they might experience, and how that translates to mothering and being mothered.
Yeah, so great question. And I think for us, it was going back to the focus of how do we create instant value? So when COVID-19 hit, of course, like all businesses, a lot of our contracts, and we were still working through, with women, but our business model was just not working out. We wanted to see how could we potentially provide instant value to these women going through challenges, because it did disproportionately affect women in the workplace. And I was one of those, because at the end of the day, I'm a startup founder, didn't take a salary. My husband, is a breadwinner essentially. And it would always come down to who would take the head of being home. And it was going to be me, because we need to still run the household. But I refused to do that. And thank goodness for, men like my husband, who was like, you know what, we're a team, we're going to do this together. Doesn't matter if you don't bring a salary home. And so anyway, with that said, I wanted to continue the work. And we found that, most women are looking for guidance in how do you navigate challenges and explore opportunities within the workplace. We're not here to make you, if you're a marketer, be a better marketer. No, we're here to see how can we help you become better leaders. You don't have to be a manager, but how do you step into that leadership role within even your position and continue to grow in the workplace? Because we don't have a playbook. We don't have, these role models a lot of times within the male dominated industry. So we don't know what's appropriate. We don't know how to say things. We don't know how to speak as effectively. So with that said, we start to really focus on building leadership competencies in women in the workplace, and giving them a bit of a playbook to be able to do that. And so we started connecting women who work in male dominant industries with other women who also work in male dominant industries, but have navigated the challenges these women are currently facing. So whether that's navigating conflict, whether that's navigating stereotypes, whether that's, managing work-life balance, which has, it's really thrown us for a loop here. What is that anyway? And really topics that hinder our performance, that hinder our potential to do our best work. And that is where, since we launched last year, I work with hundreds of women. And it's amazing how even women who we connect women who want to give back, but share the advice that they wish they had with women who are currently going through the challenges, and help elevate them, right? So I think with that, I've learned so much. I learn so much every day about how is it that we can make this better? How do we get employers involved? How do we now, looking ahead, how do we get male allies involved? So I think, again, I firmly believe that yes, the work that we're doing is so important because we're working to provide that instant value where women can feel confident, whether that's saying, I need a day off, and not be stressed out about that. And whether that's that or career development, but also how can we thrive in the workplaces? And how can we get the ecosystem to change? And again, like I said, it can never just be educating women and giving them the resources. We're always thinking about how can we get the ecosystem involved. And because of that, we also just recently partnered with Minerva Foundation, charity that has been around for over 20 years, to get them involved as well, because they have been working with organizations, providing leadership training to women in the workplace. And again, it's strengthening that ecosystem from any angle and every angle we can.
That is fantastic. And I think that it would be something that, for myself, even just navigating in the workplace, like it can, like you said in your bio, it feels so isolating sometimes. And so having that way to connect and have that mentorship, it's so important and it is so valuable. So thank you for creating that and making it accessible to more people. And you, in your last answer, you kind of touched on allies and male allies. Our last question would be, what advice do you have for those wanting to be allies and dismantlers of racism in particular?
Yeah, I think, again, I would say the same thing to the allies as well, as to look within yourself, look around your circle, look at your reach, and then see, what do you see? What biases do you have? I think we all need to first acknowledge, learn, unlearn in some cases, but really understand who you are. Why are you looking to make change? How can you do that? Who are the right people to connect to and make that effort? I think, just saying, oh, I'm an ally, is so funny. Like so many people say, oh, I'm an ally or I'm an advocate. And when you really look at these people, they mean well, but they're not doing much beyond, putting a Black image on Instagram. Like that is not ally. It's just maybe going with the trend, right? To not appear as, not a decent human being. But I think that, and I will say this myself, Carrie, I grew up in Pakistan, and we had very clearly defined class system. And so we knew that, this might be TMI, but we knew that, people who were janitors were Black people because they didn't get jobs with it. And I didn't know that at the time. It's now that I've tried to learn, like, why. So it was just like, oh, in our school too, it was all, elites that would have the good positions. And so growing up, and especially a country like that, it was just like, they define it for you. You don't hang out with this person. You don't hang out with that person. I used to play, we had 3 maids, very lucky, very privileged, and they had daughters. And one was maybe my age. And I think just even for me, it's always been about being a good human. And I think that is what I tell everybody, just be a good human first, and then think about how you can help others. And I remember playing with her in her time, and she was so young. It breaks my heart now because that was a status quo back then. That's what I knew. But it breaks my heart now to think that she was my age roughly. And I remember saying, hey, when's your birthday? She had no idea. And I was like, okay, you know what? My birthday is your birthday. So like I would celebrate her birthday with mine, but it wasn't allowed publicly, right? So it was just our little, I shouldn't say dirty little secret, but it was our little secret of like, yeah, like it's our birthday together. I taught her, how to write her name. She didn't know how to write her name. And so teaching her alphabets and making that time. And I was just so excited by the fact that I could give somebody education. So I think, and that would be like me ally back then, is to see how I can help elevate somebody who doesn't have the opportunities like I do. And I think, and there's a lot that a lot of people do, but I think looking at who you are, what values do you have, how much privilege you have, and look around and see, why doesn't somebody have that? Is it because they don't try? Is it because they don't have those opportunities? Is it because they're stereotyped? Just really take a good look. And it's hard. It can be really hard because one, we're all very busy. So it's the people who actually go out of their way to make change can be allies. So if you really want to be ally, don't just read books. Like maybe I say this because I'm not a big reader, but what I do is I actively go out and I will ask questions and I will ask the people directly. And figure out whatever your style is, but go beyond the reading, putting those images out there. Even see like, what did you used to think about these topics before it became a movement? And I just think there's so much work needs to be done. And I can tell you that my husband now, because of the work I do, is a lot more open. He's always been welcoming, but as an example, he leads a global team. And his boss was VP, and they were talking about different personas within their teams. And my husband was the one who was like, what about gender? We have no women in leadership here. And it was just like, it was never a thought that was given. So I think just even because I do the work that I do, that he knows so much, he has 2 daughters, and we talk about this all the time, that he's the one now to actually actively talk about it. Now he hires more women. And before that, it wasn't the case. So I think there's a lot that allies can do by looking around and going beyond the reading the books, listen to podcasts, and see what small things that you can do in your community to make change. And I will say this, even on the First Nations topic, that we didn't know as immigrants, we are not told anything. It's just like, it's better economic opportunity. You just move there, you make a better life. Most people, I don't know if they actually end up with better lives. I don't know that for my parents, that's not true. But you move here and then there's not much information about that. And so, and then you only hear what you hear from people you know. They have their own biases, right? So I have had to really, I will tell you, for me, it's like 180, because now I'm more accepting, more open. I want to know more, but I believe even schools can do a better job. Like in Toronto, as an example, I had never heard, this is so shocking now, I had never heard of Indigenous people. I had never met anybody who was Indigenous. And yeah, so it's just like, why are we not even educated on this? And then of course, and then it feels like it's like a mountain of like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Like, or we are immigrants, we came from somewhere else, like we don't know, So I think, yeah, so there's a lot here, as you can tell. I'm just more focused on look at yourself, better yourself, learn from people who are in it. And yeah, and do your best, right? I think, and teach to your kids too, teach your community, to your kids, bring up these tough topics, because I absolutely, you can identify who is it that's just talking about it, reading books just for the sake of doing it, versus actually actively doing something about it. So yeah, be better, be more active. Instead of reading 2 books, talk to 2 people. That will that will really enlighten you and hopefully change your perceptions and also allow you to be a better, true ally.
Great advice. Thank you very, very much. So for those who are watching to learn more about Locelle, you can head to the website at locelle.com, and to follow Humaira, you can find her on Instagram at Locelle Founder. So again, thank you so much, Humaira, for all the revolutionary mothering that you do within your family and for the community of women who are meeting mentors and being raised up and supported. So thank you. The world needs your radical acts of love.
Thank you so much, Carrie. It means a lot.